Durvidim yam shavam katam Durvim dayam shavirdahat kasham Dirmatem kashem yam tavim Dem dorvidim yem sharvadam Mahavidyam Kashavidim. Welcome to this video on the Zenwara channel. My name is Shree Satguru, Buddha Rawa Bhagwan. Today we're going to talk about the Shree Yantra. And what we're going to talk specifically about is details about how you can develop as an energy construct. There are different discussions about the Shree Yantra, and you may find a Shree Yantra quite easily online. You have different ways of visualizing the Shree Yantra. As the deity represents the four-dimensional in the embodiment way of practice, the Shree Meru, the 3D version of the Shree Yantra, exists. Then you have the 2D, on paper if you will, bringing it to the one, which is yourself. There are different practices. Some work from the outside and work towards the inside. Some work towards the inside and work towards the outside. An appropriate way of seeing it is that as an energy construct which exists within its space, its place, which is born within its space and place, and is given its space and place at birth. That construct exists at the beginning of only of the bindu and the first triangle around it. This is the starting point of an energy construct and of a being as they come. It is from there that they develop as a spiritual being and expand towards developing the other parts of the Shree Yantra, of their energy being. As they perfect themselves, they essentially develop the other triangles and petals of the Shree Yantra. As they develop their core and their extremities. So in a way you can see that the bindu and the first triangle is the core of the construct, around which the rest is built. So you expand into the full development of the Shree Yantra as you develop as an energy being. So an appropriate way of seeing it is you start as the core and develop. You do not necessarily start as the extremities. You start as the core and grow. And a part of the Shree Yantra is the concept of growth, abundance, which is why it is Shree. And it represents the growth of the spiritual being within its space and time. So in this way, when you develop and practice, you practice from the center outwards. But when you meditate on the Shree Yantra, you focus entering and exiting and different practices. So in some ways you can practice from the outside to the inside and from the inside to the outside, but when you understand that the Shree Yantra represents yourself as an energy construct, you understand that you seek to grow. So you do not go towards the core. It is the core that develops its extremities and its perfections and its other triangles and petals within its space and time. So in this way, the new energy being starts with the core, the first triangle, and the bindu. That which contains who they are. The bindu, their core, and the first triangle that contains their core. And from there, you build your energy construct. You build your Shree Yantra. There's certain permissions that are granted within the system to new developing spiritual beings. New developing spiritual beings fall within the dominions or the controlled territories of deities and gods within the system. They fall within their territories. They are by default entering into the territory of a god at the level of where the energy constructs can be visualized, the Shree Yantras themselves. They are granted by fairness and law a certain allowance to grow and develop as spiritual beings. And so they are not challenged usually by a red-coded system while they are initially growing, because they fall under the protection of a god that ensures the security of its territories within the system, within the loka, where the energy constructs develop within their spaces. And this can be visualized. Once a system grows to a certain growth, they bump into other places. They take more attention. They basically, once they grow past a certain point, come into contact with other beings at the spiritual level, where their spiritual growth now seeks to reach a certain level which is already overseen by other beings. In this way, they are granted growth within that territory of the god. But once they reach a certain level of development and encounter other beings along the way, because it's not just the god, there's many other levels of spiritual beings existing within that space, those territories of that god. And once they grow past a certain size as a spiritual being, they become fair game, essentially, for any other beings. Right? And that's why there's a safety net essentially established so that newer spiritual beings can grow and have that growth to a certain level, and that they are not allowed to be attacked at those levels until they develop to a specific ability right? And this is ensured by the law of the god that watches over that system, who allows the younger systems that are born into his territories to have their place to grow, but who also controls, when they grow enough, what they will grow into. And there are many levels of politics, if you will, at the level of the gods. And different gods control different territories. And some gods fall under other gods, right? A little bit like an organizational chart in an organization. Workers, supervisors, managers, directors, executives, CEO. And this is how the territory of the gods is established. And different gods establish their territories according to different ways. But what you usually encounter is you'll see the family of the gods, which control their territories. So different energy constructs grow and are born within the territories of an existing god. And this is why when new beings are born, they fall under, by definition, already a deity or a god, where they're grown, where they're born and where they exist. And that deity or god guides them in their life. And I referred to my video and previous on this channel on the different stages of commitment to a deity, but it happens that some individuals wish to move territories, essentially, to fall under another god, right? For there to be an exchange, where they fall under another god, a reorganization of themselves within the system and what directorship they fall under. And these things happen as well. And it happens also that there are conflicts among spiritual beings, beings that grow, right? And that certain beings seek to take the place of others. And this is something that we see, for example, when we have conflicts here in this world, right, where we exist. You know, we see people that seek to take the place of others, to take the territory of others, to take the time of others, right, that seek to impose on themselves on others, people who attack others, who seek to take what they have, basically, right? If only their peace, seek to take their peace, right? And different systems do that to other systems, right? But remembering that that falls within the territories of specific gods. So if the god tells you not to do something within his territories, you don't want to do it because you're going to have a bad time of it, right? So definitely conflict is best avoided because there's always another being that's going to be higher up than you. And if they decide, for example, that they don't like that you became a red system and that you're causing a mess of things within a certain sector, right, of the loka where energy construct Shree Yantras exist and interact, well, then you might get visited by the local deities that are above you, that are keeping order within those sectors, and that might just decide that it's time for you to get a visit as a red system, by a red system. You know, and a red system is a system within the levels of the energy constructs of Shree Yantras that is a system that goes on the offense and invades other systems' place and space, right? As a green system is a system that is basically or green in a specific direction towards other systems is a system that basically is at peace and doesn't seek to take over, doesn't seek to take over or dominate space and time. Okay. So there are different levels and different color codings of systems. So for example, your green system, you're growing, you're having a great time of it, you know, you just grew, you just made a few petals on your Shree Yantra, you're growing as an energy construct, whether you're aware of it or not, and basically developing at that level of that loka, right, which is interconnecting with this loka, right, interweaving, right? And then you're all happy and you just grew to spiritually, and all of a sudden your space, right, is invaded by a red system that was waiting for you to develop to a specific height or or depth, essentially, as a system, so that you would no longer be protected by that rule that basically allows new systems to not be invaded, right? Upon fear of repercussion from higher systems. So there's certain critical stages in the spirit development of a spiritual being where when they grow to a specific level, they get challenged, right? And they encounter different obstacles and things that try to take their space or their place or dominate them or control how they think, or or basically change them or slow them down or hold them back, or all these different things, right? Because essentially once you reach a certain level, right, of spiritual development, you're no longer protected by that law that protects developing systems. You've now reached to a point where a system where you're striving to potentially gain power as a system, to become a powerful system, right? So at that point, you encounter other systems that are hanging out around you that basically say, "Whoa, wait a second! You're not going to come and take power around me or on my borders, on my frontier. I'm going to come in as a red system, and I'm going to take your space, and I'm going to end you as a spiritual being. Take your space, control you." Right? So there's a lot of games that happen at that level, at the level of those lokas, where the Shree Yantras, the energy constructs, exist. And remember that you are the energy construct developing as a spiritual being. Okay? So as you exist, for example, at the level of energy lokas, right, as this energy being, and then you can see the Shree, which grows to a certain height, and all these different things, and spiritual beings, towering beings of light. Right, you also have another loka that can experience, which is the loka of the Shree Yantras, right? The energy constructs, the geometric constructs that grow, and the beings that they represent and are at that level, right? Okay, so at that point, you grow as an energy construct. So once again, you start initially at your initial state as that bindu in just that first triangle, as a green system, the protected from everything. You're protected by higher gods that let you grow in their territories. But then you keep growing as a spiritual being. You start doing the other elements of the Shree Yantra. You start growing into perfections, right? And then all of a second, you're becoming a spiritual being that has gotten some power. All of a sudden, you get out of that protected area, right? That no one can, that friendly zone that no one can basically interact with, where you were just growing, and all of a sudden you're fair game. So you have to be able to hold your own as a spiritual being, and that's why there's those limits that are set up so that it's fair, for people too, because the reality is at the lower levels of spiritual development, when you get to those first levels where some people have gotten a little bit of attainment, a lot of people are confused, and they go red system, and they basically cause a bit of chaos and all these different things. They seek opportunities potentially to get energy, to get something from you, to take over your space, take over your being, and to take from you, right? So that's basically one of the traps, right? And is the trap also that leads people to becoming asuras, for example, or having that asura prakriti which dominates them, right? It's that thing that believe that you can take from others what you want, right? So there's that. Right? So when you get to those levels, that's why, people say, well, asuras and those types of beings, beings that are potentially more powerful than your regular human, your regular deva that's not developed, but that's the thing, energy constructs that are growing really at a low level, they're protected in many, many ways. Okay. They're protected from basically having their space really taken from them as an energy construct. Okay. So as an energy construct, you need to defend your space, right? And you can't do that when you're first growing. So that's why these laws are put in place in the system by the gods that control all the territories under them, right? Where you're not allowed to red system a green system that's in its initial phases of development. But once you get to that first threshold, that's where a lot of action takes place. All of a sudden you reached a couple of things spiritually, you grew, you passed through the safeguard, the force field that protected you, then you will start encountering other things that are powerful too, and they can go give you a nasty surprise. So it's important, to, in that sense, understand the concept of an Ishta Devata, right? Essentially, a favorite deity that you put yourself under that protection and you allow them to grow. Okay, so as a spiritual being, you're born essentially as an energy construct. As you have your Shree Yantra, which represents you, and you're small, and you have that first triangle and that bindu in the middle, right? And from there, you develop, right? And as you develop, it's good to put yourself under the tutelage, if you will, and to basically thank in any way possible your mentor, if a way, your Ishta Devata, right? Which basically guides you in your growth, so that'll usually be a deity that's above you in your sector where you are, one that you know about, one that's above you in your sector, in the territories in which you exist, right? So you'll choose a deity at that point to guide you. And as you grow as a spiritual being and reach those first levels, when you get really into the hot zone, if you want to call it that way, where you're encountering other beings now and you're no longer protected by those initial protections of the system, of the governing god of those territories, then it's good to have that Ishta Devata that protects you as well, because if you were faithful to the Ishta Devata, they'll protect you if anyone else comes to encroach on your territory in that way as well. So what that basically means is develop good relations, with the different levels of administration of the system, right, of your territories where you exist as a spiritual being, right? And basically be loyal to the directorship of the gods that govern your territories. That's my best advice to people. They allow you to grow, they're fair with you, they protect you when you grow at your initial stages. Don't forget them when you grow a little bit bigger and start thinking you're going to take their place or something like that. It's not going to happen, first of all, and it's a good way to lead to your destruction. Okay, you don't seek to take the place of anyone in the system. You don't seek to take the place of gods. You don't seek to take the place of angels. You don't seek to take the place of enlightened ones. And you really don't seek to take the place of an asura, but that's a little joke. Okay, so basically you don't seek to take the place, right? You seek to grow yourself as a spiritual being, understanding that you have been gifted a spiritual journey and a spiritual future by the creator that created all of this system. Okay, everybody's been given a spiritual journey, and it can take many forms, and it's for them to basically experience it if they allow themselves to experience it. And that's the journey basically that leads to them growing as an energy construct and perfecting their Shree Yantra. Okay. So a little bit more information on the Shree Yantra. I'll end the video at this note. It's already been 23 minutes and a few seconds there. So just to keep this video viewable. And I thank you for listening to this video on the Zenwara channel. Sharvahadim Kasham Yadavim Kal Taravashahadam Yavim Kedor Vadim Kasham Yada.